Hey YouTube, Lawler here. We're going to be talking about RLCS 2025, new details on the format. Much to be the same as last year, but there's definitely some key things that are different. We've already gotten details of like when everything starts on January 3rd, which some people are upset about, even though they've known about it for months in the initial announcement. But we do have some breaks being implemented, conversations about the 1v1 space and how those are going to work out, and some new format changes that I think a lot of people will like. So with that in mind, if you guys haven't seen the updated blog post, they put it out on Twitter, which is probably one of the worst places to actually post this. They need to find other ways other than just Twitter to post these. But luckily for me, we got the videos, we got the covered. Link to this this tweet will also be down below for the article. But overall, things to remind yourselves of. A lot of emphasis on two things. Number one, team streams are going to be very important this season because they're not showing the initial qualifier process, which they're now calling the preliminary stage. Don't worry, we'll break that down. And they will be splitting things into multiple days or multiple weeks. So with that in mind, how this all works. Broadcast officially for the RLCS channel, twitch.tv/Rocket League, will begin on January 11th. If you want to watch the open qualifier process, like the double elimination stages and all that kind of stuff, that will be beginning officially on January 3rd. And the only way you can watch those is if you have an official team stream from the organizations or the players or the staff or whoever is putting on those broadcasts. We're going to break this down based upon the dates, and then we will associate the format on those dates and what you can expect. So the way this is going to work, same thing as last year. 2 majors, 1 world championship. The split itself, so we had split 1 and split 2. Those are going to be known as like where the major is located. So we already know, as they announced a while ago, that the first major is going to be in Birmingham. So split 1 is now the Birmingham split, and all of the qualifications are now Birmingham Open 1, Birmingham Open 2, so on and so forth. With that in mind, we are going to be starting with Europe first this year. Europe, SAM, and APAC are paired, and then we've got NA, OCE, and MENA paired as well for the different regions. The way that it works out is when every time there is EU going on in the main event, NA will be going on with their qualifiers and alternating. This is no different than any other year. What is different, though, is they are providing a week break in between matchups for people. So players, instead of having to do, hey, I'm playing in qualifier, hey, I'm playing a main event, hey, I'm playing in qualifier, main event, there will be, hey, I'm playing in qualifier, I made it into main event, I got a week off, qualifier. So they add a 1-week break, and that shows in the schedule here. So in the first week, they're going to play the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of the preliminary stage. This is where they're trying to go from everybody signing up down to basically their top 32. And then they're also going to have that finalized on the following Friday. The difference, though, this year is it does not look like RLCS is going to be covering that. There will be no official Friday broadcast for the RLCS this year. They are only covering the main event, which is going to be on Saturday and Sunday. This should not be a surprise. We are seeing many esports still reduce costs. We even saw the League of Legends broadcast team get completely cut and basically said we only have team streams now. And all that broadcast talent basically lost their jobs. It's really unfortunate. So they are reducing the amount of stream days for the official broadcast because they are quite expensive. I would know that as someone who is running the Apex this week. If you guys want to tune in, twitch.tv/Lawler, Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week. It'll be starting at 12 p.m. Eastern. Come hang out with us. Links to the Apex stuff down below in the description, or for people in chat, !Apex. Come hang out with us. It's going to be a dope event. But for the format itself, Saturday and Sunday is official. Everything else is going to be reliant on team streams. Whether it is someone like myself and an organization or a team comes to me and goes, hey, man, you can run production on this. Do you want to do it? Or it's someone like we saw with, shout out to Corelli and Spaceman with LG last year and the team stream that they did. That is going to be the reliancy on things this year heavily, it looks like. With that in mind, these are kind of the reduction process with this date and the others being the top 32. Now, what's important for this year is we do have automatic buys being given outside of Open 1 and Open 4, which we haven't talked about yet. Those first iterations of a split, so Birmingham split and then Major 2 split, whatever they're going to call it, the first event is clean slate for everybody. There is no pre-existing RLCS point advantages. There is no weighted seeding advantages outside of your initial seed going into the bracket based upon, you know, hey, this team's really good. They're probably going to be towards the top. Talking the Vitalities, the K-Corps, new Energy or former G2, stuff like that. but there is no automatic buy into further stages until you get into the second and third stage, or the second and third open qualifier of that split. So in this case, open 2, open 3, open 5, and open 6. Those teams will automatically get a top 8 bid into that stage of top 32. It is the 8 from the best performing. So if that's confusing, open 1 and open 4, the first open qualifier, the preliminary stage, the main event, after we go through the double eliminations and all the crazy formats, you find yourself in that final top 8 bracket. Being in the top 8 is really important because it gives you an automatic bid into the top 32. You skip all the double elimination that we didn't have. We won't see, likely, K-Corp losing to SA this year. They want to provide solidification and a little bit of a bias and a little bit of favoritism towards the top performing teams, rightfully so. It's a good balance between giving them an advantage and making sure those orgs stick around, and also rewarding the hard work, but there still is chance for upset in an open qualifier system. So, qualifiers, main event, week break. Qualifiers, main event, week break. Qualifiers, main event, week break. While that's going on then, we then have the alternative, like I said, with NA, OCE, and SSA, technically MENA in there as well. They just do their stuff on Thursdays instead of Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Same as last year. That should be no different for anybody. But you can see, while they're doing their qualifiers, they then go into the main event. That's when their qualifiers begin. When they're doing their main event, that is when they have their week break, and then it bounces back and forth. Pretty straightforward. 2 weeks break, 2 weeks break, 2 weeks break. NA and the rest just start a week later, just so they can balance it out. After we get through all of those, the big thing that's different this year, as you guys know, is they are now including a 1v1 tournament as well. They're going to start with that same group of EU, South America, and APAC, right? EU, South America, and APAC are going to perform in 1v1s. So those 3 regions are going to have a 1v1 tournament. Scheduling is specifically done so it does not conflict with 3v3, so you can still compete in both if you would like to. But the 2 best performing will then go to the major with their individual representation and compete for a chance to play at the World Championship. And if you want to talk about pressure, if you want to talk about intensity, things on the line, imagine a 1v1 show match for a chance to go play at the World Championship in front of that crowd. It's going to be pretty crazy. We could very likely see, some of the top dogs in EU. Nas has been playing really well. Drawley's been playing really well. You got Moxie going up against some of these other insane players like Diaz and things of that nature. Should be very, very exciting, but a lot of pressure on the line for that 1v1. There will only be those 3 regions competing to find the top 2 who will then play at the major. Those are the dates that are listed here. Notice how the main event is going to be during the major. We then talk about when that major is. So they have the pre-existing for the qualifiers, but the actual main thing for the 3v3s and the 1v1s, the 1v1 will go down on the final day. It'll go on the final day of the major. I assume they'll use that as the show match after the semifinals before they get into the grand finals. It usually is to give a break. It's to make sure they ice the team with momentum to make it a little bit more fair. But again, you're talking about as a 1v1 player, I can't imagine that level of pressure. Because the winner of that, and they assume it's EU and South America, they have that written in, but technically it could be APAC that outperforms, but it's very likely that EU and South America are going to have the better representation on 1v1s. I would be it's probably Diaz. Although Diaz, I don't think can technically, because he's playing in North America for complexity. So maybe that'll change. We'll have to see how that one plays out. Should be pretty cool. But yeah, the 1v1 event will be on the last day, very likely before the grand finals. And the event itself, another 4-day major with probably only 2 days being able to be attended in person. Pretty standard. I agree with chat. Watch parties are going to be sick. It's going to be pretty dope for those players. We then have the opposite, where they do the same thing like I mentioned for NA, where NA, OCE, and SSA are going to be the ones that are competing. I don't know where they're sticking in MENA for this, to be completely honest. I don't know if MENA is going to pair with NA. I assume so. I assume they want NA and MENA to be competing for that spot to compete in the World Championship for 1v1s, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. I'm assuming that based on scheduling and the way that it works out, because their stuff aligns with NA, just a day shifted before. So that's my assumption. But they will not play their 1v1 stuff until second major. The way format works, and we'll line these for these guys to make sense. We're going to take an example of this. Day 1 and day 2 are your double elimination. We talked about last year with the big open qualification stuff. Day 1 and day 2 are just straight double elimination. As many teams can sign up. We had over 1,000 last year. It was crazy. Payouts are into what, top 128 or whatever it is. It's a lot of people. But day 1 is just straight up, hey, you're trying to become the top 192. Once you get into day 2 is the top 192. You're then going to work your way down. Those are your first 2 days that are happening the first week. So the 3rd and the 4th are your double elimination brackets. Pretty straightforward. Usually very straightforward for the top seeds, like your K-Carbs, your Vitalities, your Energies, so on and so forth, or G2, I should say, in last season's case, where they're going to crush through. They're going to play their 3, 4, 5 series. Then they sit and wait. We'll see tomorrow. Same thing. If I'm an organization, probably not going to be streaming those because they're going to be extremely one-sided. We saw at one point Furia put up like 50-some goals against one of those teams. It was a bloodbath. We then get to the 3rd day of the tournament, and that will be on that Sunday of that first week. That is probably going to be the first time people really tune in, which is the double Swiss. Double Swiss is a little bit confusing for some people, but what you should assume is 2 things. Number 1, this is where if you are a top 8 team in qualifier 2, 3, 5, and 6, where I talked about those teams that are top 8 get an automatic bid, this is where they are implemented. So on that Sunday for the first week of qualifiers is when you're going to see those big names come in. The way that I am assuming they're doing a double Swiss is it is impossible to do a 32 team Swiss in the time it would take, because that means teams would either have 6 wins or 6 losses before they get eliminated, which means a potential 11 series on the day. Not going to happen. They're going to split them into 2 groups of 16, and they are going to take 4 of the top and 4 of the other top, so the top 8, and split them into 2. So they'll take number 1, number 8, number 2, number 7. They go in one group, and then 4 through 7 or whatever it is, like math and stuff, or 3 through 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so 3 through 6 will go to one group. 1, 2, 7, and 8 will go to the other group. They'll put those in, and then the remaining 12 teams will come from the qualifier. So your expectation of getting to top 32 is 8 are automatically guaranteed, and then we will get the remaining 24 from double elimination. So 24 teams make it out of double elim, joined by 8 that automatically qualify, except for the first one of both of the splits. The first split, or the first qualifier from both split, is pure open qualification. It's very important, chance for upset, but then they reward the teams that make it through the bracket process. So that is your first weekend of RLCS. Your first weekend is going to be double elim, and then 2 groups of 16, a lot of team streams, a lot of support going to be needed from the community. Okay, which is good opportunities for casters and people in the space, people like myself that are very appreciative of that. I think it's a really cool way to show up and be able to spectate and check things out. When we then come back on Friday, the following week, so this is now week 2 of the main event kind of process. So that's what this date is, this date. So EU goes through, we find our top 32, life is good. We go through Swiss, first to 3 wins or 3 losses with our weighted teams in these, but not in these. We then get into, okay, we see 4 teams progress from both. That's how we get our top 8. Life is good. We then go into main event, but 8 are actually going to make it out of that bracket. So we still have 16. So how do we do 32 down to 16? We have 8 make it out of both groups. We then go into our top 16. This is when main event starts, right? Main event starts. We get into the RLCS. Life is good. We're chilling. It's picked up by the main broadcast on twitch.tv/Rocket League. They might have a B stream on RL Esports. We don't know yet. But the 11th and the 12th is going to first start with the top 16. And they're using what's called a GSL format. And if you guys do not know what the GSL format is, it is stood the test of time. It is very popular in the StarCraft community where it originates from. And to give you guys a little bit of interest in this, it's basically 3 chances again to qualify through. You start your opening match, which is weighted based upon seeding. And if you win, you go to the advanced in the upper side of the bracket. If you lose, you go to the lower side of the bracket. cool thing about this is it is strength of schedule. So the good teams winning are playing other good teams. The teams that are losing are playing other teams that are losing, similar to Swiss. And the benefit of this is it makes it really, really nice for strength of schedule, making sure the best teams move forward. It is a really good qualification process to make sure that if you are a team that's supposed to be winning, you are going to be rewarded for it, and you're going to get additional lives because of it. But oversimplification of this, you basically have two chances. If you win, good. You got 2 more lives to carry you through, but you have to essentially go 2-1 out of your matches. And they're all weighted based upon how well you perform, what your seeding is, strength of schedule. So, for example, if you're Team A or Team B and you win, Team A wins because they're the high seed. They go to the 1-0 round in this double elimination. If they win again, they advance. If they lose, they go then to the 1-1 round. And now they still have an extra life. If you're a team in lowers and you lose, you go to the 0-1 round where you play another 0-1 team. And if you win, you go to the 1-1 round. You win, you progress through, and you go to the next advancement, and you go to the next stage. If you lose, you're done. 0-2. It's a very overcomplicated double elimination bracket, but the way that it's weighted is to make sure that teams of the same strength play each other. It's basically like a double elimination version of Swiss. It's really, really cool. I'm a big fan of it. But it's an overcomplicated double elimination is the best way to say it. I really, really enjoy this format. I think this is going to give us some very good competition. I think for us, it sounds a little bit confusing, but as a kind of a reiteration up to this point, just to kind of talk about, we start off with what we did last year. Double elimination, you work down to 192. Double elimination, again, you work down to 32 teams. 32 teams in the first qualifier are going to play each other in 2 groups of Swiss, 16 and 16. First to 3 wins or 3 losses. If you're one of the top 8 teams, you move forward. That's nothing new. We then get to our top 16. We are now doing another double elimination bracket, but the double elimination bracket this time is now weighted based upon your result. 1-0 team plays 1-0 team, 0-1 team plays 0-1 team, so on and so forth. That's how we then get to our top 8. The only time this differs is when we get to the top 32. 8 of those spots are already taken up, 4 in each group, due to having pre-existing results from the previous event. That doesn't happen in event 4. That doesn't happen in event 1 because we haven't had pre-existing events so far for the split. I know it's very confusing. Once we then get into our top 8, that's our main event days. Once we get into the big, the big stuff, the main event days are a hybrid bracket. And if you guys do not remember the hybrid bracket, this is what they did at the World Championship. To my knowledge, they're going to do the same thing with strength of schedule, where if you are one of the top teams, so say you are in this GSL bracket, right? And you go 2-0. You're a top seed. You did it. You are better than everybody else. You deserve to get a little bit of a extra nod. And because of that, being a top 4 team guarantees you an extra life. Not only does it guarantee you an extra life, but the team you play in the lower bracket is the winningest of the losers. So seeds 1 through 4 get an advantage. So 1 is playing the 4 seed, 2 is playing the 3rd seed. But in the lower bracket, you have 5, 6, 7, 8, or technically 5, 8 playing, and then 6, 7 playing, I think is how the math works out. But even if they win against that and you lose, you are still playing the team that is the better team out of the lowest possible seeds. So you still get an extra life, you still get an advantage, and realistically, you should win that. There is still chance for upset, but by winning your games, you are given advantages throughout the entire tournament, which is massive. It makes for really cool rematches, makes for really good storylines. There is literally no excuses for losing your matches. If you are the better team, you should most definitely win because you have advantages all the way throughout. So the cool thing about that, and for a lot of people that are kind of like, hey, Lawler, this is really complicated, and I agree, it is a lot to take in. The cool thing about it is the understanding that no matter what you're playing in, whether it be double eliminations, Swiss, GSL, hyper bracket, if you are a team that can control your own fate, you win the matches when you're supposed to, you close out your series, you go 3-0 in Swiss versus 3-1, 3-2, you're being given an advantage now and the rest of the tournament, which carries weight. Your performances, your intensity, the ability to say, hey, we are the better team and we win convincingly, is being heavily weighted and heavily rewarded, which I don't think it gets more fair than that. So I'm a big fan of this format. I know it's very complicated and I know it's a lot to take in, but again, as a final iteration, the first weekend of RLCS is all up to team streams. It's double elimination down to 192, double elimination down to 32. If we're talking the first event of the split, so we're talking qualifier 1 or qualifier 4, there's no advantages, there's no automatic buys. It is just straight open, run it, get to the finals. If it is qualifiers 2, 3, 5, or 6, the top 8 teams from the first qualifier or the fourth qualifier will get a bye into the top 32, which is what the third day is in double Swiss. When we get into double Swiss, 2 groups of 16, they're going to take out of those 8 automatically qualified teams, put 4 in one group, 4 in the other group, and then fill out the rest of the 24 teams 12 and 12, and they'll run a Swiss bracket, which is what we did last year. First to 3 wins or 3 losses. After that is done, we then get our top 8 from both of the groups, which gives us top 16, and they go to that new GSL bracket, which is a StarCraft format. That GSL bracket is basically a double elimination. It'll cut the teams in half, but it's a weighted double elimination. So if you go 1-0, you play another 1-0. If you go 0-1, you play another 0-1 team, and it weeds its way through. Essentially, you can't get 2 losses, but if you go 1-1, you still have another chance. It's pretty dope. Once we cut those teams in half yet again, we then go into our hybrid weighted bracket, which is top 8, which is what they did at the World Championship last year. If you're a top 4 seed, if you're 1 through 4 and you went 2-0, awesome. You get an extra life. You play strength of schedule. You get advantages. If you're one of the teams that are 5 through 8, unfortunately for you, you don't have any extra lives. You are playing a team that is most equivalent in your seeding. So 5 will play 8, 6 will play 7. And then you go on to play a top 4 team, and you got to play upset. So advantages galore if you're a top 4 team consistently. It makes a huge difference. But at the end of the day, we talk about any given Sunday Rocket League. There's always chance for upset, and it's very entertaining. I know it's a lot to take in. I know I just talked for a very long time, and I know it's very complicated. I personally am a visual learner. If you guys would like me to do some terrible MS Paint, let me know in the comments down below. I will do my best to actually showcase to you guys what this looks like with pictures and graphics and images. I tried to add some in here while we could, but if you'd like a better breakdown, 2 things. Number 1, hit subscribe, turn notifications, helps me out greatly. Number 2, stop by the stream, leave comments down below. I will do my best to give you guys answers. Or stop by the watch parties. I will be breaking this stuff down live as we do these things, as we watch the matches throughout the season. And if you do have additional questions, I will do my best to answer everything I can. But with that in mind, that is what we have for the format. I am assuming they are going to make this cohesive and do this for the entirety of the year. How it'll apply to the World Championship, we don't know yet. But I would like to assume that what they use for Major 1 is what they use for Major 2. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's what I got for format updates for the Birmingham split, also known as Split 1. If you guys have any questions, let me know down below. And as always, if you guys enjoy the content, like, subscribe, notifications. Hit subscribe, turn notifications, helps me out greatly. Leave a like, leave a comment, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you in the next video. Peace.